Hello and welcome back to Bookish and welcome back to Tag Tuesday. Today I have two tags for you on what'll be a two-tag Tuesday. Unusually, these both come from the same booktuber. That booktuber is Mark. Over at Book Time with Elvis, the precocious Mark made two original tags, I believe, last week, and he tagged me in one of them, and I thought, well, if he can make two original tags and release them in a week, I can do both if I want to, so I'm going to. The first of those tags is the tag he calls the what tag. So the what tag asks, a series of questions which begins with the word what. And so I'm going to go through those. Hopefully I can get through these before my phone dies. So prompt number one, what's the oldest book you own? The oldest book I own is Winning a Cause, World War Stories, which was essentially a piece of post-World War I propaganda, published, I believe, in 1919. Yes. Published in 1919 to convince the American public that our participation in World War I had been worthwhile. I don't know if you know this or not, there was a lot of anti-war backlash right after the end of World War I in the United States and elsewhere. This is part of, where the lost generation came from, and a widespread belief and some proof that the war had led to profiteering, and a lot of Americans, particularly young Americans, thought the war had been fought for profit and for money, and that people had lost their lives for that reason. I don't know if you know this or not, but that's not an uncommon theme after war, during wars in the United States of America. Prompt number, and probably elsewhere too, I'm just not as sure. Prompt number two, what is the most sentimentally valuable book you own? That would be my copy of Love in the Time of Cholera, which my then girlfriend, now wife, gave me in 1988. I've kept intact with the postcard it came from. I believe this is a second edition or a second printing of the first edition. But anyway, it has an inscription from her in it, and therefore it has a tremendous amount of sentimental value to me. Prompt three, what book has given you a sleepless night? Any book which caused me to, read on well past my bedtime is probably a good example. But I think the best example I can think of right now is Post Captain by Patrick O'Brian. This is the second in the book of the Aubrey Maturin novels, and this one has a lot of sea battles in it, and Patrick O'Brian is basically was a great writer and great at writing anything, but his description of sea battles and things like that was really great, and there's several in here, and I probably stayed up way later than I should have reading that book. Let's see, the next prompt is, what three literary characters would you most like to have dinner with? Okay, so this is one of those issues that comes up on BookTube, and it has to do with BookTube crushes. And if I use the word crush, then people automatically assume there's some kind of sexual component to what I'm saying, and I really don't mean it that way. So let's just say that these are three female characters from books with whom I am, let's say, enchanted. That would be Esther Gobseck from Balzac. She appears in Lost Illusions. She appears as the titular character in A Harlot High and Low or A Harlot's Progress. That book has several names, and she is said to be so enchanting and lovely that all men fall in love with her immediately. She is martyred in that second book, and she's just a really rich and interesting character to me. I'd also choose Ida Scott from James Baldwin's Another Country. She is the younger sister of the drummer who dominates the first section of that book, whose name is Rufus Scott, and she's a singer, and she is independent-minded, sassy, strong, and talented and enchanting, and she would be a great dinner guest. And then Helen Graham from The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte would be my other dinner guest because of her strength of character, her independence, her artistic talent. I think she would be a charming dinner guest. Prompt number six, the next prompt is, what book would you most like to live in for a year? This was really hard for me because I don't want to sound, like a weenie or anything, but a year is a long time. I can think a lot about lots of books I'd like to visit for short periods of time. A day, a weekend. But a year, you really then are in that experience, and I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to be, seasick. I don't want to be in a situation where somebody's going to blow my head off. I don't want to be in a situation that's depressing or sad or violent or dangerous. And I would like to have enough to eat and to be relatively comfortable in terms of my sleeping arrangements and the temperature and the people I was hanging around with. I'd like to be relatively pleasant. So that was really tough for me because I'm taking it seriously and thinking about spending that year there. That was a big deal to me, and I'm trying to answer the question as honestly as possible. So I went with the world of northern Dublin at the time, in the setting of Roddy Doyle's Rabbit Family trilogy, which one of which is The Commitments. And I think I could enjoy and have fun spending a year as a roadie for the Saviors of Soul band, The Commitments. I think that would be fun. Be a lot of pubs, be a lot of good music. Maybe they invite me on stage to do a guest, singing, but a roadie for that band for a year, I think I could do that. Sure, there'd be fights and there'd be uncomfortable moments, but I think that would be fun. So that's what I went with, The World of the Commitments by Roddy Doyle. The next topic or next prompt is, let's see, yes, what deceased author would you like to have resurrected and why? So this has been my answer, I think, to similar questions to this several times. So I would like to have Ernest Hemingway resurrected so that he and I could get into a fist fight. If you know anything about me, I'm not an Ernest Hemingway hater at all. I just think it would be a great story to be able to say that I got into a fist fight with Ernest Hemingway. I'm sure he'd beat the crap out of me, but it wouldn't matter. I would like to get involved or like to do that just for the story, just to have that on my resume. Was once in a fist fight with Ernest Hemingway. I believe Orson Welles might have gotten into a fist fight with Ernest Hemingway. Maybe that's where I got the idea. What book turned out to be the biggest surprise for you? I get surprised by books all the time, but I'm just going to say that The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte really surprised me, but with the richness of the writing and the complexity of the characters. It's not a perfect novel. There's a long section where Helen is attempting to kind of save herself from her husband, but I really liked that, and I was really surprised. I expected it to be a lot sappier, a lot more romancy than it was, and in reality, if anything, it might be kind of a proto or early semi-feminist track about women being able to live independently and make their own choices. And I think that I was really surprised by that book. And then the last prompt in this tag is, there's also, not the last one, the next to the last one is, what book that has already been published do you wish we'd written? I don't have that wish. And I'm not trying to demean or make the prompt seem silly at all. I don't want to have written a book someone else has written. If I'm going to write a book, I want it to be a book that I've written. So there's my answer to that. And then the final prompt is, what book has had the most influence or impact on your life so far? So I've also given this answer several times, but that would be Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises, which I frequently list as my favorite book, and I think, or one of my favorite books, and I think that's still fair. And the way it had an impact on my life is, I think it is the book which is most important into making me into a real reader, someone who reads for the pleasure of the word, the sentence, the scene. I think that's the kind of reader I became because I liked The Sun Also Rises so much. I read that book and I wanted to read more, which explains why I've read so much Hemingway, including, if you've read any Hemingway, there's a lot of really bad Hemingway out there. But from there, I just went on. And so that's the book that I think kind of made me into a reader. Okay, there you go. There is the what tag. I'm going to tag everybody I'm going to tag them at the end of the next one, by the way. So the next tag that Mark created over at Book Time with Elvis is a little literary tag. And so I just thought the questions on this were kind of interesting, so I wanted to do it as well, even though I wasn't tagged. Mark did tag me to do the what tag, so I appreciate that. So prompt number one is, Tolkien once said that cellar door is the most beautiful expression in English. What do you think is the most beautiful word or phrase in English or any language? Okay, so I went with sun-dappled. Sun-dappled is the most beautiful expression. And I'm not sure that I think that's true, but there are a lot of expressions that are a lot of things out there as possible answers. But I do think sun-dappled or some variation of that is a beautiful phrase, a beautiful set of words. And I think anything having to do, any description of light that I find really effective kind of works like that for me. So I thought I'd give an example from James Joyce's short story collection, Dubliners, from my favorite story, probably my favorite short story of all time, is Araby. And so I thought I'd just read an example of what I'm talking about, which I find kind of beautiful. So this is when the character and his friends are out playing on the streets, and his friend Mangan's sister comes to call her brother. Or if Mangan's sister came out on the doorstep to call her brother into his tea, we watched her from our shadow peer up and down the street. We waited to see whether she would remain or go in, and if she remained, we left our shadow and walked up to Mangan's steps resignedly. She was waiting for us, her figure defined by the light from the half-open door. Her brother always teased her before he obeyed, and I stood by the railings looking at her. Her dress swung as she moved her body, and the soft rope of her hair tossed from side to side. So just to give you an idea of things that I find to be kind of beautiful that have to do with light, I thought I would read that example. Prompt number 2 is, what words in English do you find most amusing? I think somebody else stole my word, but I'm going to use it anyway. I think one of the most amusing words is mellifluous. And I forgot the term for a word, which sounds like its meaning, but I think mellifluous is that. But then I realized that I like a lot of words that begin with M and end with OUS. So I thought of mellifluous, meretricious, meticulous, malodorous, mendacious. I like those for some reason. The sound or the feel of those words, sound of those words in my ears, the feel of those words in my mouth is amusing, and I like those words. So prompt 3 is, have you memorized any poems in full to whip out now and then to impress your friends? If so, which ones? I don't think I've memorized a whole poem in my life, but I do have a few lines from a poem by Robert Burns, the Scottish poet Robert Burns, who wrote a lot in dialect. And so the poem I memorized a few lines from, and I'll just do as many as I can remember here in a second, is Scots who have with. But it's not written that way. It's Scots whom, I can't even say it. So I'm not going to do the Scottish part, but it's essentially Scots Wahawi is how I think you would pronounce the title if you had a Scottish accent and knew what you were doing. So the lines of that are, let's see, Scots who have with Wallace bled, Scots who Bruce has often led, welcome to thy gory bed, or to victory. Now's the day, and now's the hour. See the front, O battle lower. See proud Edward's power, chains and slavery. Anyway, it is kind of a Scottish, call to arms and independence for a free Scotland, which, I'm not an economic expert or anything like that, but a free, independent Scotland, I think, would be really awesome from my point of view. Prompt 4 is, who or what do you consider to be an underrated, underappreciated author or book? So I'm going to go with a book you've seen me told up many times, and that is Through the Wheat by Thomas Boyd. Thomas Boyd, an American author in the 1920s and 30s, wrote what I think is the greatest American World War I novel, and that is this novel, Through the Wheat. It paved the way for a lot of other World War I novels. It is like an American version of All Quiet on the Western Front. It has been, I have owned several editions. It before even copyright expired, it was published by various university presses. It was originally published by Scribner's, thanks to F. Scott Fitzgerald and Max Perkins in 1923. I think Boyd is an author who has gotten lost in terms of American literary history, and I definitely think that book should have earned him a more permanent place. Prompt 5. What book do you consider to have the best or most memorable beginning? That is a tough question, and I could think of several, but I decided to go with A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. You may know that every year around Christmas time I watch as many versions of A Christmas Carol as I possibly can. And the best ones are the ones that begin with, oftentimes the ones that begin with Dickens' actually opening line. And his opening line of A Christmas Carol is, Marley was dead to begin with. I like that whole exchange there at the beginning. Anyway, so that's what I chose. Prompt number, I can't read this tiny print. Prompt number 6 is, which book title best describes you? I went with Slow Man by J.M. Coetzee. This book is about a man who gets hit riding a bike. I believe he gets hit by a car or a bus, and then his recuperation is kind of the frame around which the story is set. And I'm not saying the story itself applies to me, but the title, Slow Man, does, because I come from a family of genetically, physically slow people. I have to be one of the slowest running people to have ever lived. Prompt 7 is, what was the last book you read that led to a moistening of the eyes? And that would be The Ending of the Other Name by Jan Vos. I read this book relatively recently, and I found it to be incredibly beautiful and powerful. And I'm going to talk about this again on another day. I'm not exactly sure why, but the ending was so moving and powerful that I found myself tearing up and almost kind of sobbing and gasping for breath at the end because I was just so moved by it. Prompt number 8, when it's time to shuffle off this mortal coil and go to the big library in the sky, what bookish literary quote would you like engraved on your headstone? So I've seen Steve Donahue and others do this, and I agree with them. I don't want to be buried in a graveyard. I don't want to be buried in a cemetery. I don't have a need to have a headstone. I would like to be cremated, and then whatever happens to my ashes, I don't care. I would joke all the time that, the truth matter is that funerals and funeral services and everything that happens after you die are not really for you. They're for your loved ones, the people grieving for you. So the reality is all of us are going to, all of our mortal remains are going to be dealt with by members of our family, however they see fit best. And I know you can leave provisions in your will, but still. But if I were to be buried and I were to have a gravestone, I decided I would go with the line that Bilbo delivers at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring at the long-expected party, where he kind of confuses the citizens of Hobbiton, which I would like to do that as well. And this may have to be rephrased slightly to put it in the past tense, but I would have part of his speech, which I'm sure many of you guessed by now. I would have on my gravestone. I don't know half of you half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve. I just think, a nice little confusing, semi-snarky comment on my gravestone seems appropriate. Prompt number 9, if you wrote a book and didn't want your own name to be used, what name would you choose as a suitable pen name? And obviously, my pen name would be Lord Marmaduke Smedlington. That would be my pen name. And then finally, many literary characters have sidekicks, henchmen. Who would you choose to be your companion on your life adventures? As Kelly pointed out when she did this, well, obviously I've chosen my wife to be my companion on my life adventures, but I think what Mark intends for us to do is pick a fictional character. And so I will pick Stephen Maturin from the Aubrey Maturin novels by Patrick O'Brien, because he can pretty much do everything. He speaks lots of languages. He's a doctor. He's really smart. He's good in a fight. He'd just be a good sidekick. So there you go. There is a little literary tag. So I'm going to tag some people, and I'm going to tag 8 people, and you can choose to do this, either one of these or both of these tags if you see this. So I'm going to tag Lucas from A Bit of Lit. Lucas seems convinced that there is a tagging cabal on BookTube, which controls tags and tagging and creates an exclusive club, and somehow he's not in it. So I am extending this tag to Lucas. You can do either one, and you can see this as a signal that you're now a part of the cabal, or I'm attempting to break up the cabal by inviting more people. Also want to tag Marilyn Maya Mendoza. I think she calls herself the Baby Boomer Booktuber, and she is just fascinating and what a life. Anyway, I'd love to see her answers. Kathy Grimm from Grim Reader, tag you as well. I don't know the name of this booktuber, but I really enjoy her channel. Her channel has a great name. It's To the Lit House, and I'm sorry that I don't know your name. I searched your About page, and I looked through some of your videos, and somehow I didn't find it. Maybe you don't want it known, so I'm just going to go with your channel name, To the Lit House. I don't know if Roz from Scally Dandling About the Books has been tagged, but I'm going to tag you. I want to tag Pay from the channel Attention. Daniel from Guilty Feet. You may have already done the tag, or you may have been tagged. And then Tony from the channel Book Text. Tony just started a series on women modernist writers. I think this week, and I really think that was I watched the first one, which is about an author whose last name is Macaulay, who I hadn't heard about, and it was really interesting and fascinating. I hope she continues with that series, and so I wanted to tag her as well. And I forgot, but also almost always tag Alan, my friend Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics. So my friend Alan, you're tagged as well. Anyway, there you go. There's my Tag Tuesday for today. Probably a little bit longer than average because I did 2 tags. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching.